Okay, so can I get your name?
I'm Roberto Sharpe.
Roberto Sharpe. And so how you been doing martial arts for how long?
It's hard to say, but I started, formally as a little boy.
And what's your background then? So
judo, shitoryu, Japanese karate. I went up to black belt level in that as a boy, as a teenager. Fujiao-pai, the Tiger Claw system. I started that here in New York. Jiu-jitsu from the Moses Powell and others of the Black Federation of Martial Artists. From that background, I came out of that. Newark and New Jersey, and New York City to some extent. As I matured and finally got into the Tai Chi curriculum, that all those things faded away. And I really went for the Tai Chi. And in that same period of time is when I found capoeira. So I'm talking about 25 years ago. Was a portal of time that was very special to be in New York City, and to be a young man able to do things in New York City. Because at that time is when capoeira first came to the United States. I was there for the first teachers. I was there for the first, you might say, post-traumatic stress of the black movement. To see black men, who had graduated from the military, came out of Japan, came out of their Asian services with their own systems of martial arts now, and passing it on. So Moses Powell, Little John Davis, people of the Puerto Rican descent and black descent making their own way.
Are these people influences for you?
Yes, they are. They're major influences, if not directly teachers of mine.
Any other major influences?
Western boxing, by means of my teacher of the last 15 years, Wilson Pitts. He really helped me to understand how Western boxing would make a wonderful platform to really apply our Tai Chi skills.
Cool.
And to really kind of, this is our culture, right? People put up their dukes, and when you're ready to fight, you say, okay, you think of boxing in a way, as opposed to like putting on some Asian look to you, and announcing that you're an Asian stylist. This has allowed me, through my help of my most worthy teacher, Wilson Pitts, to really make these things my own, an expression of me as opposed to, what do they look like in Taiwan.
And you had told me before, so you actually went to school and you got graduate degrees. Where did?
Sure.
What was all that about? Where did you go? And
I went to Columbia College, and that's when I came across the first kung fu lessons in New York as a college student, a college-age guy.
And what did you study?
I studied political science and philosophy. I graduated the class of '82 in philosophy and poli-sci at Columbia College. I then took a break from, when I graduated, I went on into the world and tried different things. Ended up in journalism, New York Times. I was a copy person, copy clerk, and all during this time, I'm training myself or looking for lessons.
Right.
And so, with no money or little money, there was more self-training.
Sure.
When you got a good job, you could afford to go get lessons from people. So during that time, a lot of time I spent on my own, and it really helped me to kind of ground out what it is that I really want to be about. So even now, 25 years later, it's a difference between someone who's constantly under tutelage of someone else as opposed to someone who has migrated a bit.
And you went to law school as well?
I did, right. I did that not too long ago, about 10 years ago now. This is 2007.
Right.
All right, so 1997 or so, I went to law school at New York Law School and got my JD in law. And I graduated with my class. I was in the evening division. And during that time, I was also an employee of the office of the mayor, New York City, doing a parole defense. So I was the administrative assistant in terms of organizing parole defense attorneys. And as you know, Giuliani and then Bloomberg were very much against prisoners' rights. And when Bloomberg took over, away went my job.
So you were doing this up until Bloomberg?
Yes.
When did you start teaching?
How long has Bloomberg been in office?
Really? So this is fairly recent.
Well, in terms of full-timeness, yes. In terms of full-time commitment. Before, this was always been, teaching was always an ancillary, auxiliary to.
And did you do it in like gyms, or was it here in the park?
I started here in the park, and then people who worked for gyms saw me and hired me into their gyms.
And so what made you think to come out here and start teaching in the park?
I think that really has to do with the nature of Chinese martial arts, which is
Oh,
it's
yeah?
a public park event. If you go to Chinatown, everyone's in the park at a certain time of day doing their respective martial art without any kind of it's not like a big to-do. It's like, of course, this is what we do in China, this is what we do here.
So you thought to come out and practice, and then people essentially made you a teacher.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's exactly right. And I think that's even traditionally the case, which is you don't go around calling yourself a teacher.
Right.
People call you that. People call you teacher. You should never beware of someone who walks up and introduces himself as teacher, Teacher Joe. It should be someone who comes across and says, "Hey, that's Joe, my teacher." You see?
I see.
Sifu, or the word Sifu, I'm told the good manners is that if I see my teacher, I will say Sifu. But he doesn't walk up to me and go like, "It's Sifu talking to you now." My teacher will never accept being called anything other than Mr.
Really?
Mr.
And which teacher are you referring to?
I'm talking to Wilson Pitts, my Tai Chi and Bagua and boxing teacher. And I really, I don't come anywhere near to his level. So if he doesn't call himself, Grand Poobah,
you had better
I can't start. So when he calls himself Grand Poobah, then I'm Poobah.
And so up until recently, you were doing like a more traditional job. So
yes.
Now you've come and you're teaching, and this is what you do now?
Yes, I do this constantly, and of course I do this in gyms and in institutions and in after-school programs.
Oh, after-school
and in senior citizen centers.
And do you find this more fulfilling, or?
Yes, I mean, yes and no. Everything is fulfilling that if you do it with all your heart. I mean, I was really, to me, they're all part of a similar mission, which is to try to help those who need the help. Right? To help those who are in prison that need help, that can't possibly defend themselves, to bring them those who can help them, and to be someone who helps. Law, in my opinion, should be for helping. When it's not, that's why people hate the lawyers, because it has become linked now to kind of something else other than helping those who need help.
Right.
Come to taking advantage of the system, and when the right opportunity opens, I would love to do the right kind of thing with the law. But for now, apparently, the times and the markets and so on have opened up the personal training, the physical training, the martial arts as my way of making a living.
So you go with the flow then? You're not necessarily committed to this, like you're committed as an art, but you're willing to...
Yes.
You're flexible.
Yes, exactly. And that's the nickname for, for everything I'm doing, I would put it under the rubric of liberation. Liberation from crass materialism, liberation from stylisms, liberation from many kinds of little egoistic traps we can all enter when we get good at something.
Right.
When we get mechanically good at something.
So you've got this liberation martial art where you've learned so much that now it's time to...
Yes, or even actually I've learned enough to know that someone can always be good at a certain phase of something. And you can build self-esteem with many different types of students and different types of talent levels. But the point is to really help people get better, and not to put Roberto or anyone as like, wow, I wish I could be like him. More it's like, or look what muscles you have. No, that's why, I mean, I sweated through my shirt. I have my shirt off now, but my point is that if you train hard, fruits come out.
Right.
Fruits come out of it, and they're really unpredictable. There's some folks here who are chubby and they have a big belly, but man, can they move it.
Right.
And they're happy and they're gloriously chubby. And I wouldn't change them for the world. Someone else is skinny as a rail and can really fly like a bird. Let them fly like a bird. Why chain them down to the ground with some kind of bodybuilding, ideal? Other people are, gorillas, and they're Frankensteins, and let them come and enjoy.
And so that's great. And do you have any particular message you'd like to say to anybody who might see this?
Take with a grain of salt whatever you see, and even believe less what you hear.
Yeah.
So we're just, I'm hoping that people see that in New York City, in this East Village at this time, there's a historical record of what we do.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.